Be it with flowers from www.flowers.ie. Rated 5 stars on Trustpilot.
Hi everyone, can I get your attention? I want to congratulate John, our sales rep of the month. Well done, John. Fantastic job. Now, tell us, what prize would you like? A weekend away in Spain for 2 people, or this gorgeous looking and incredibly thin 24-inch iMac powered by the Apple M1 chip?
Wow, thanks. Great prizes. But I'm going to have to go with the 24-inch iMac. I mean, come on, it's stunning.
Times have changed and employees have too. Give them a choice and they'll deliver their best work. We are Bekla, an Apple authorised reseller in Ireland offering device as a service with flexible terms to suit your business. Visit bekla.ie. That's BECHTLE. Bekla.
You may have moved on in your career, but has your pension followed? At pensionowl.ie, we help busy professionals like you take control of their pension savings, moving them from old employer pension schemes into their own name. We can even help you access part of your pension when you turn 50. If you've moved on, but your pension hasn't, go to pensionowl.ie and take our 60-second survey to see if you qualify. Make the wise choice with pensionowl.ie. Sparks Wealth Limited, trading as Pension Owl and Sparks Wealth, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The future of public transport is bright, with the Transport for Ireland network growing and improving throughout the country. Increased demand for bus travel has led to many exciting new professional bus driver vacancies across a wide range of bus companies. Driving a bus for a living can offer long-term job stability and contributes towards a greener, more sustainable community. It's time to explore a role in bus driving that moves you and others. Visit transportforireland.ie to find out more.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner of our women's national football team. Outbelieve together and we can go anywhere.
You are very welcome back. It was a weekend of derbies here in Ireland, in Scotland and in England, and the Glasgow derby was won very comprehensively by Celtic against Rangers. A 4-0 victory, very impressive indeed. We'll be talking to Tom English about it a bit later on in the programme, but Pat Nevin, you were at Parkhead as well.
I certainly was, and I was seriously entertained while I was there. Before the game, it was difficult to know because Rangers had certainly improved over the last year. They got to that Europa League final in Seville, which I was at that game as well. So they'd beat a lot of teams. They'd also got through to the Champions League group stage by beating PSV Eindhoven. So the gap between them and Celtic seemed to have closed. It seemed to have closed until the game started. And Celtic were extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And I tend not to get too carried away with Scottish football in the Scottish Premier League too often. But I have to say, Celtic were they are an amazing team to watch. And they have been since the day Ange Postecoglou basically came into the club. But in this game, it was a joy to be there. And that's with their best player going off injured after 2 or 3 minutes. But they play a type of football that I can't remember anyone playing it to that level before. This speed of closing down, but not just closing down. It's a few people have talked about it. I'm sure Tom will talk about it later. Every time they get a free kick or a throw-in, you take free kicks or throw-ins quickly. That's one of the tactics you do, right? Not them. It's lightning. It's like 2 seconds. And everyone else, the opposition are looking around, complaining. They've gone. They're away. They've scored. And they do it, and they keep on doing it, and they keep on. And it's easy to do that, but to do that with the speed, but with a skill as well. Honestly, it was brilliant to watch Celtic, and they went 4-0. It could have been more against Rangers, who are not a bad side. But Celtic are a bit special at the moment.
Yeah, no, they're in fantastic form going into the Champions League. It's a very difficult game against Real Madrid this week that they have, but everyone kind of looked at the 9-0 the week before and went, look, that's beating a team who are already beaten docket when you've put a few goals past them in the first half. But as you mentioned, this Rangers team are no mugs. Last year they were very good, particularly away from home in the run in the Europa League. They got a little bit of luck against PSV when they had a bit of closing down and it was a golden opportunity that was handed to them. But still, under Van Bronckhorst, they've been very good at going away from home and being difficult to beat. And Celtic just brushed them aside.
Which, I have to say, I was surprised. I think Celtic were still favourites going into it. They had a very good team last season. They had decent depth last season. They've added brilliantly this season as well. Even the players that they let go, there were good players like Nir Bitton, but they couldn't play that specific style, as the Celtic fans call it, Ange ball. Postecoglou, he just asks them to do this incredible thing at this incredible pace with, a brilliant team spirit. And I mean, I was walking out talking to quite a few Celtic people on the way out the game and at half time. And one former Celtic player said to me, "That's the best I've seen since the Lisbon Lions." And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. Steady on there. It's pushing it a bit. I've watched so many great Celtic teams over the years. The team that had Dalglish and Danny McGrain and David Hay, and they were amazing. And a lot of decent teams since then. But the excitement around it is spectacular. But as you rightly say, you find out when you get to the Champions League group stages, and it's a hell of a hard group they're in. And we'll find out. I'm not saying they're going to win that group or even get out, but they're not going to be a walkover. They're going to be a very tough team to play against. But it really is very, very exciting to watch them. And being at Celtic Park for any Celtic and Rangers game, it's always an amazing atmosphere. And European nights are always incredible. And I'm old enough, and I can tell both you, Will and Dan, I know you're not as old as me, right? But I was there in 1980 when Celtic played Real Madrid then. Laurie Cunningham was playing for Real Madrid, and Celtic done them at Celtic Park. And I think it was 3-2 they get beat overall in the tie. But they're massively competitive against a world-class side. And they're going that direction again now. I don't know if they're there yet, but I can't wait. I really can't wait to see how they do. And this game against Real Madrid on Tuesday night is going to be extraordinary.
Yeah, I think what's interesting for me, Pat, is that, like you mentioned, Ange ball, or how it's described by the sort of the regulars there. Like, do you think it's possible they can translate that will be their approach in the Real Madrid game? Because some of the European nights I've been at Celtic, like when Neil Lennon was in charge and stuff, and it was about being more patient. It was a different type of performance, like Barcelona and a couple of games like that. Whereas you described the tempo they operate at when they're on a going day. Like, would you expect to see that tomorrow?
100%. That's what they're going to do, right? They will not do anything else. If it doesn't work, Ange is a bit like, like Pep Guardiola. They play their way, and if they get beat, and people say, "Oh, you should have been a bit cuter. You shouldn't have played so many players forward," or whatever. And Pep looks at you as if you're stupid. As if, why would we change? This works most of the time. Now and again, it doesn't. You just go on and keep on doing it. That's Postecoglou. There's no way they're sitting back. There's no way they're not going to try and do to Real Madrid what they try and do to everyone. Now, it might not work, but it won't be for lack of trying to play that way. I have a suspicion, and I suspect Postecoglou understands too. If they try and play a different way, in a more defensive way, they'll get done. Because I don't know if they'll be that good at that. But if they try and impose their game, and another one of the phrases coming out of Celtic Park was, someone said to me, "Yeah, that's the Celtic way," which is, and I remember I was a schoolboy signed for Celtic and a supporter when I was a kid. And there was a phrase we used to have at the time was, "Score an early goal and press on regardless." And that was what, didn't matter who you played against, that's how you played. That was the attitude. That's back at Celtic Park now. And it will take something incredible to stop that happening. Now, it might be an absolute horsing by somebody, but I think before that happens, you're going to just see the same thing. So it's definitely worth tuning into that game just to see where they are. And I'm disappointed that Kyogo's probably won't be playing. He damaged his shoulder badly. But the fact that they've got really good backup, and they made 5 substitutions against Rangers, and not one of them made them weaker. Not one. And that shows you where they are just now and what he's trying to do. Maybe the question mark would probably remain to some degree with the centre-backs. They're going to be up against not a bad centre-forward. So, Carter Vickers and Starfelt. If Starfelt, he got injured the weekend, then Jens might have to come in. But Carter Vickers has been brilliant and improving and reading the game better. And maybe that's another thing at Postecoglou. He's making decent players good players. He's making good players very good players, and he's making very good players look like great players. Just moving them on that bit. But a lot more questions are going to be asked of that defence. And I tell you now, I don't know the answer, but I am seriously looking forward to finding it out. And anybody that goes to Celtic Park, I mean, you remember you used to hear Barcelona players in their great days saying, I remember Deco talking about it, I remember other people talking about it saying, they loved Celtic Park. They just couldn't shut up about it after having been there. So it's going to have an effect. It definitely has an effect.
Might be a slightly different job trying to stop Vinicius and Benzema tomorrow night, but
exactly. I will not argue for that for a second. But to one upside does, and here's an analogy then. Again, I'm not saying don't miss goal. I'm not saying they're going to win, but if you watch the Premier League this season and you watch Chelsea when they went to play against Leeds, they were just outfought, weren't they? And I was at the game, and then teams going up, Liverpool being shocked by Fulham because they were outfought for periods. So your Brighton will do that to you. Fulham will do that to you. Newcastle will do that to you against the very top teams. Newcastle get a draw, as do Villa against Man City. If you go and attack these teams with energy and don't sit back scared out of your life, you just never know. You absolutely just never know. And I think that's the whole attitude that, it's time not to be fearful. It's time to, either win or go down in a blaze of glory. And that's kind of how I like my football.
Well, football here on Off the Ball is with thanks to Sky, proud partner of our women's national football team, of course, ahead of tomorrow's game against Slovakia especially. Pat, to go from Celtic to one of your former teams in Chelsea, you just mentioned there, they were the perhaps beneficiary of one of the bad VAR decisions over the weekend where somehow West Ham's late equaliser wasn't given and it was adjudged that Mendy was fouled in the build-up to it. We might talk about VAR in a more general sense, but in a way, Chelsea were very lucky to get the 3 points in that derby at the weekend.
Extremely lucky. I think they were the better team. There was a rotten first half, but they were probably the better team in the second half. So, and chances in play, and they probably were slightly the better side. But you're right, just that last minute, and it was a really interesting thing to watch. I don't know about you. I think a lot of people, myself included, rewound that and froze it about 20 times to see what the hell was going on. Now, this is the honest truth of it. They got it wrong. There's no doubt. They got it wrong. Because VAR's there for a simple thing, is to get the obvious decisions right when they've been called wrong. That wasn't an obvious decision. Absolutely not. Now, if you slow it down and you look at Jarrod Bowen's leg, his left leg, as he goes for the ball, he goes to jump over Mendy and he lets it trail. Let's be honest about it. He lets it trail. We've all done it. And he's not trying to hurt Mendy, but he lets it trail. At a push, that's a free kick. But it's not an obvious, serious mistake by the referee. So they got it wrong. But I understand why they made the decision. But they still got it wrong. And I felt really quite sorry for Moisey because these teams worked really hard. From a Chelsea's perspective, they're shouting at you. Did anybody remember the exact same position a few weeks ago when Cucurella had his hair pulled? and you're talking shed end, a yard away, and they lost 2 points out of that because he wasn't sent off. They 10 men, they put the corner and scored. So there's a few Chelsea folk out there going, well, wait a minute, you're making a big song and dance about that. What about... And it maybe does, arguably, even itself up, but not for a millisecond am I arguing that West Ham shouldn't have scored. It should have been a goal. It should have been a draw. And I did feel really sorry for Moisey and for West Ham.
Away from the VAR, how are Chelsea now settling with these new signings, Pat? Because there's been like a summer of great change with players who've left, particularly up front within the team, and losing 2 defenders in Rudiger and Christensen on top of that. So naturally, Bowley was going to come in and he had to spend some money to regenerate the squad. But it's almost like unrecognisable compared to the team that won the Champions League at this stage, and 280 million has been spent. What do you make of Chelsea's business, and how are those players now settling in early on?
Right, it's very hard to tell because it's really early. Chelsea had 5 outfield players of the 10 that started who weren't available to them last season. So, you had Sterling, Cucurella, Gallagher, Fofana and Koulibaly. So they didn't play for them last season. So to find yourselves, that's just last season. That's not even Champions League season the year before. So when Thomas Tuchel says this is a transitional time and people are going, transitional? He just won the Champions League a year and a bit ago. But it's been a wild time for that football club. The change of ownership, number of players going, complete rejig of the team. And the fact that they are, if you look at the league table just now, where they are, actually amazes me. Because I was at the game against Everton. They were not good. I was at the game against Leeds United. They were hopeless. Watched the game live that they played against Southampton. Didn't deserve to win that one either. Southampton were the better side. So, that is definitely a it's changing, it's adapting. But just for the first time, I'm beginning to see some joined up thinking. It seemed a wee bit scattergun, didn't it? You know, oh, he's available, we'll buy him. You know, we'll get him, he's available. But now you look at it, you think Fofana, really good buy. You needed a centre back there, or else they had no chance. Koulibaly, jury out to some degree, but he'll do a good job because Thiago Silva's beside him. But when you start looking at, you know, say if Aubameyang, I don't think he'll play every game, but if you got Aubameyang up front with Sterling and Kai Havertz off him, well, that's pretty good. That's good goals there. And that's before you think, well, if you don't get their two behind a striker, you could always put Mason Mount and Gallagher, and you think, oh, actually, that's all right. There was question marks over Cucurella, but I don't think it should be. I think he's a fabulous player. But what that's done is put massive amount of pressure on Ben Chilwell. And how does he react to that? Well, you saw on the weekend how he reacted to that. Reece James has just signed a new 6-year contract today. So it's taken a while. And I would say if you asked me the question 2 weeks ago, I wasn't putting them top 4 this season. No chance. And I'm looking at it now thinking, actually, that looks quite joined up now. That actually looks like a little bit of strength and depth in the right areas. And certainly with the players that are ageing a little bit, you know, Kante is a phenomenal player, but he's getting more injured more often. Jorginho's maybe a bit slower than he was. They had to strengthen, and it looks like they've done that pretty well.
Arsenal still sit top of the table. They've suffered their first defeat of the season, and in a way there was something very kind of typical about the way that this game went, where Arsenal had a lot of the ball. They had some very good spells, especially the first 15 minutes of the second half. It was like Arsenal were laying siege to Manchester United, but United picked them off on 3 counter-attacks effectively, and that was enough to win the game. There was a very kind of old school feel of United versus Arsenal in the way that the result played out. Yeah, and it's hard. I keep on saying it to everyone. The Premier League this season looks a wee bit different to me than it has done for a few years. You don't really go anywhere and cruise. There's almost nowhere you go and cruise. Everywhere you go, you've got a battle, and that's going to be the same if you're Man City or you're Arsenal going away from home. I think you're going to have to battle for the vast majority of games. So it's still a tough gig, with a little bit of form being shown by Manchester United now. I like the way they set up. Again, I've talked on this show all the way through last season to quite a bit of abuse, saying that Ronaldo's an impact player now. He's not your main striker. And of course, I'm getting people shouting at me going, he's scored all these goals. It's not about that. It's about, if you're going to be competitive, you need to be able to close and harry from the front. And it just doesn't happen when you've got, you know, Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo in the team against the very top teams. And they get picked off last season because of it. The way they're using them now, and if Ten Hag can keep on using them this way, that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And you just look at the energy there was around that team, a lot more energy. Now, they're not a high-pressing team yet, nothing like it. But it looks like everybody's working as a unit now. So, yeah, it's well done, Manchester United, and they are a decent team when they do that and everybody works together. Arsenal, I still like them. I still think they're great. I still think they're really good players. And I will hold by, still, that if I had to choose between Spurs and Arsenal for top 4, I'm still Spurs. I've been Spurs since the start of the season. I'm still Spurs. Really grown-up management, real intelligence about the way they play. I'm going to see them next week, and I can't wait to see them in the flesh at their own stadium. I think what they've got going forward, and this is with Son not even playing particularly well yet, I think they're really special too. I suspect that Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, they could all be fighting for that 4th spot. Tara is an Arsenal fan, that boy who's been in contact on 53106. What did Pat think of Arteta's game management yesterday? Seemed a bit frazzled by the occasion.
Yeah, he does get a bit excitable, doesn't he? It's one of those things, you know, when managers, you know, get really excitable and get so involved, and you can see all the passion, and they win, and everybody loves them for it, and everyone goes, wow, that's exactly what we want, that's what the fans want. And when you lose, they say, oh, he's lost control. You can't win that one. It's over a period of time. Yes, there was a lot of pressure on that one. The expectations were high. He was a bit frazzled with, you know, a number of decisions like everybody else is. But I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. I think that level of passion is okay, because he's shown that he's grown that into a better team. over his period in charge, it's taken a while, but he's grown that team to be a better team, a better young team, a team built in his own image. It'd be harsh, it is slightly harsh to call them Manchester City light, but there is a wee bit of that about them. But that's maybe not the worst thing you can say about anyone, is it? No, I have to say I like Man City. And the other thing is, Odegaard's a brilliant player, right? And Saka with a really good game, and Zinchenko's been a great buy. But Gabriel Jesus, I have to say, he looks a different player. He looks, because he's more the main man now, he's kind of grown. And it's interesting to see that. Same's happened to Raheem Sterling at Chelsea. Take them out and say to them, right, you're basically the main man. Some of them melt and others grow. And Gabriel Jesus, I think he's grown with it. So I think Arsenal fans should be, I'm not telling them to be delighted. I know they are. I know they feel good about this team. And okay, so you get the odd defeat and they'll be disappointed and frustrated. But no, they're a good team. And they're great to watch as well.
We kind of cycle through your ex-clubs here when I think of Everton against Liverpool, perhaps not the most memorable of Merseyside derbies, but plenty of ebbs and flows within the game. I know you were at the Celtic Rangers game at the same time, but Liverpool particularly hitting the crossbar a couple of times in the first half. Luis Diaz took a strip of paint off the inside of the post on the follow-up after the Darwin Núñez chance, and then Everton possibly could have had a goal through Conor Cody. Again, it was one of those kind of controversial ones on the weekend, but to put a Liverpool perspective on it, that's now 4 games so far, Pat, that they've dropped points in. I know Man City weren't able to go top because of their draw against Aston Villa, but how concerning is it for Liverpool, the amount of points they've dropped in the first month of the season?
Well, they'd be concerned if it's comparing themselves with the points they got previous seasons, yeah. But, I was at the 9-0 game, so I might be slightly biased since I've seen them play quite well that day. But no, there's so much quality there. The one thing that two things about Liverpool, and it's not being negative because we all know all the positives, right? We all know the great players they've got. We all know that they will score a lot of goals. I had a question mark of creation from the midfield. Whether they'll get so many goals from the fullback areas, the geniuses up front were great, but people breaking from midfield and scoring or being ultra creative. No, Thiago fine, but was there enough? They're adding that now. Harvey Elliott's, he's been fabulous. I mean, he got taken off in that 9-0 game at half time, and he was definitely the best player in the park. Definitely the best player in the park. He's very, very special. And I definitely think they know what they needed to add there. So that's taken a wee bit of time. There's a couple of technical things that have changed with Liverpool. It's kind of not that easy to see. One particular one I've noticed early on, which they need to figure out. Andy Robertson used to get a hell of a lot of the ball on that left-hand side. Always free, left-hand side, slewing all these balls in all day long and creating lots of goals, right? Not been as many lately. Now, is that Andy Robertson a lesser player? Or is that the fact that Sadio Mane's gone? And he used to take that position and drive out of it and leave this enormous gap because people were scared of him and ran with him. They've got a different type of player out left-hand side now most days. And it's kind of stifling that wee bit of their game. It's a weird thing. They put a great set of players that are attack-minded in the left-hand side, but it's also cut off some of the space for Andy to get into. So I'm suspecting Jurgen knows about that and he'll be working on it. So I'm not worried long-term for Liverpool. They'll be fine with that. The question is, and I hate saying it, but I'm going to have to. It's been about a year now where you're looking at Van Dijk and you're thinking 10 out of 10 is not a 10 out of 10 anymore, is it? A lot of games. It's dropping a wee bit.
Some of his mistakes are non-characteristic. I think back to earlier on the season where he had a couple of tackles that he dived into. What we associate with Van Dijk, where usually he'll shepherd a player or he looks so in command.
But you kind of wonder as well, like the other players around him, like he probably had that air of invincibility, and other players will, they're possibly feeling that too.
Is Gomez the issue, I wonder?
Right, I think it's a technical one, right? So I haven't played against lots of very, very, very good defenders, and I often talk about McGrath. Paul McGrath was amazing. You could never get by him, and all these players in my time, but some more modern players as well. Rio Ferdinand's a great example of it. They never seem to get beat. They're always... Then there comes a time where something happens. They start getting square. Instead of shadowing and chasing and manoeuvring, that get square onto the ball and try and stick a leg out. And you think, oh, that's uncharacteristic. Why are you doing that? And there's often a reason for it. And you've lost a wee yard of pace. You know, and I don't know if that's the case with Van Dijk yet. But I've seen it now 3 or 4 times, a couple of times this season already, where he's got himself square and he's giving away fouls and free kicks in dangerous areas where he never done that. He never, ever done that. I've watched him all the way from his Celtic days, and he never put himself in a square position where if you're square and somebody puts the ball by you, it doesn't matter how quick you are, you're not getting back if they've got a run on you. And he never positioned himself. And often players do that when they think, maybe I won't get there. So they make this kind of last-ditch thing. And Van Dijk, I've seen him do it time and time again, and he's great at it, and he gets away with it. But see, when he doesn't, it looks bad. And that's what's happening a couple of times just now. Now, get it in perspective. He's not a bad player. He's still brilliant, and he's still a great player. But trust me, Premier League teams seeing that will look at it and think, right, okay, let's see if we can get him square again and see if he does that again. So that's a minor concern. The other concern is, you have a look at Liverpool. It's a different centre-back beside him every week, isn't it? Mm. Every single week, it's a different guy standing beside him. That doesn't particularly help you either. So I absolutely take your point, Dan. It can be those around you as well. But that's something maybe just to keep an eye out as the season goes on. He hasn't tested that often because they have so much of the ball. But if you get square with somebody like Zaha, you know, Wilfred Zaha, or somebody of that skill, it doesn't matter how good you are, you'll get done.
Duck for cover in the YouTube comments, but I think he qualified it well at the end of that conversation around.
No, I know, Liverpool fans are always going to have a dig at me. I'm used to it. And come on, carry on, guys.
Thick skin, don't worry about it. Pat, great stuff as always.
Pleasure.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Let's do it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!